To When the Smoke Clears. I am the Recovery Plug. How's it going, man? Hope you guys are doing well today. My day's going just fine. Thank you for tuning in to the episode today. I greatly appreciate that. Thank you for your donation of your time, which is very, very important for the channel to grow and to spread the message, right? To spread a message of spirituality, of recovery, of just love and compassion and mindfulness, right? So if you would please indulge me in a moment of silence while I ring us in and get our energy levels grounded and set for this episode so that we can really relay a message to the ears that need to hear it. So if you would please indulge me in a moment of silence. Let me grab my keys and we'll ring in. Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, Nam-myoho Renge Kyo. Eternal Buddha Shakyamuni, please guide us. Energies of the world, energies of the universe, allow us to ground ourselves in this beautiful essence, this beautiful ambiance of energy that will allow us to open up our minds, open up our hearts to a teaching, perhaps, to a word of wisdom, to allow yourself to be teachable, to allow yourself to be indulged and consumed by the spiritual energies of that beautiful presence. All right, thank you. All righty, so now that we've grounded ourselves down and set that really good energy, it's always good to have a good foundational energy to a good a message, right? Because we want to be able to relay a message that not only helps ourselves but helps your fellow human being, right? Because we all need that little bit of assurance, that little bit of comfort, that little bit of hope. So without any further ado, I'm going to get these glasses on. Let me clean them up so that I got no smudge everywhere, so I can read what I got to read. I took some notes down, and we're going to do today is I'm going to go over my notes, and I'm going to also give you a couple of, we're going to also read a little bit in a couple of the books that I chose for the session. But first and foremost, what I want to what I want to bring to you right now, what I want to, I guess, give you the topic of where we're going with the episode. And what I want to talk about today is impermanence. Impermanence, letting go, and the freedom to change. And, this episode is about one of the most powerful and sometimes uncomfortable teachings in Buddhism and recovery, and also in our everyday life. You know what I mean? That is the topic of impermanence, because we don't like to think of things. It moves people different ways when you think of things that are not going to last forever, right? And now in Buddhism, the ancient term is anicca, which is a Sanskrit term, and anicca, which is a Pali term, which meaning the same thing, impermanence. And it also translates into the truth that everything changes. Everything from our thoughts, our feelings, our relationships, our bodies, our everyday life, even our suffering changes, right? Now, if you're in recovery, you probably heard the saying, "This too shall pass." That's impermanence. So I want to share with you more than just a comforting phrase today. I because understanding impermanence isn't just a mental or a philosophical way of seeing things, but understanding impermanence can become one of the greatest tools that we can have in what I like to call a recovery arsenal. You know what I'm saying? Now, for healing addiction, trauma, depression, anxiety, grief, whatever, right, etc. And so first, I want to just give the definition of impermanence from the Sanskrit and Pali term from the Shambhala Dictionary of Buddhism and Zen. Now, in this text, it states, let me get that here, and that's coming from, we're getting this definition of anyata, of impermanence, of anicca, from the Shambhala Dictionary of Buddhism, which is this book right here. And it states that impermanence, Pali, is anicca, transitoriness of or impermanence, is one of the three marks of everything exists. I'll say that again. Impermanence, transitoriness, or impermanence is one of the three marks of everything existing, which is trilakshana. In everything existing, those three parts is trilakshana. Now, its transitoriness is the fundamental property of everything conditioned, that which arises, dwells, and passes away. From it derive the other two marks of existence, suffering and non-essentiality, which is the suffering, dukkha, and the non-essentiality is the non-atman, which is the non-self. Impermanence is the basis of life, without which existence would not be possible. It is also the precondition for the possibility of attaining liberation or moksha. Without recognition of anitya, there is no entry into the supermundane path. Supermundane path meaning the Arya Marga in Sanskrit. Thus, the insight leading to stream entry in Sanskrit meaning Shrota Apanya, is often to be recognition of the transitoriness of impermanence of existence. Now, the nature of existence as suffering is based on impermanence because the phenomena that compromises impermanence, arising, dwelling, and passing away, are inertly painful. And that is suffering for us, right? In this world, that suffering is always that painful, right? At different levels, of course. Now, the impermanence of the five aggregates, which is the skandhas, explains non-essentiality, since nothing that is impermanent and thereby of the nature of suffering can constitute a self. That is because the Hinduistic conception of the self, which determined that of Buddhism, entails permanence and freedom from suffering. In the Mahayana, the emptiness, shunyata, of all dharmas is concluded from their impermanence. Now, it's kind of a deep philosophical definition of impermanence, of coming and going, you know what I mean? But I like to add those in there because it really brings you to the core of spirituality, of core teachings of change. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes we ask why change feels so hard. Now, one of the strangest things about being human is that we know everything changes, right? And yet we spend tons of our time and energy trying to stop the change. How ironic, right? Now, we want good feelings to last forever. We want relationships to stay exactly the way they are. We want our health to remain strong. We want certainty, right? And when life changes, we suffer. Dukkha comes into play. Now, Buddhism teaches something simple but yet profound, that I think that pain is unavoidable. Suffering comes from resisting reality. And I know for myself, resisting reality, dealing with your problems is something that we all like, that a lot. I think it's human nature probably that you always want to avoid that because you don't want to feel the suffering. You don't want to feel that emotional roller coaster or whatever it is that's the whatever the pain is, right? That's a blank space that you can put in whatever you think that should be there. But it's like I know for myself personally, not wanting to deal with the emotional roller coaster of trauma, of depression, of grief, I wanted to stop the suffering, wanted to, by using, right? By using, which is in itself permanence, right? It's impermanence in itself, because it's only a quick fix. And you're back to the reality. You're avoiding the reality to just land back into the reality. You know what I mean? And for a lot of us, it keeps you in that cyclical cycle, because you get used to doing something that's giving you this just small amount of time of feel good, I guess, or that you don't get to think about whatever it is that the suffering is, right? And in the Buddhist practice, mindfulness helps us notice change as it's happening. You know what I mean? In my practice of mindfulness is what it does, because I do it constantly in everything that I do in my everyday life. The consistency of the mindfulness and compassion allows you to start seeing things in that way, right? Now, we pay attention to the breath coming in, to the breath going out. We notice sensations in the body. We recognize that every moment is different than the next, that everything is changing moment by moment by moment. And in our daily lives, we are detached mentally from the awareness, so that you become aware of, so what you're becoming aware of is the constant suffering and afflictions in an internal and external way, because of what you're dealing with right at that particular moment, right in the here and now. And so it keeps us stuck, in the suffering. And at first it seems like it's working, right? At first it seems it's working, because in the early days of, we'll just use my personal experiences, for example, in my early days of addiction, it was fun. Even though I understood that when I consumed this, I drank this, it allowed me not to feel all of this other stuff. But at the same time, it was fun. It was exciting. I liked it. And as the time went by, as the addiction grew, rooted you down into this uncomfortable feeling, because that's what that does. That's what the addictions and the mental the mental things that bother you, it keeps you ground down to this uncomfortable feeling, right? And so you keep doing it. You know what I mean? You stay in that cycle that I'd rather just keep doing it. And without you noticing, next thing you know, you're full-blown addiction or full-blown anxiety, full-blown depression, full-blown suicidal mode, right? And I speak of these things because I've been through all these things, right? I'm giving you examples of my own personal experiences, not of something that I'm just gathering from a book or a lecture. It's personal experiences, right? And now in recovery invites us into the same type of practice as Buddhism, in a sense. Instead of saying I am anxious, we might just be aware and notice that anxiety is present right now. But we need not react to it. Simply be aware, and in a few minutes you will experience impermanence, that it goes away. You know what I mean? And I know that, a lot of people will say, "Oh, yeah, that sounds okay on paper, but dude," and I get it. You know what I mean? Because I've been there, man. I've been there in days where I was just so consumed with the depression, the grief, or the anxiety, or this the fiending for another hit or whatever, that little bit of silence, you're not thinking about it. Because you're too busy. You're mentally too busy into this cyclical world of samsara, of suffering, of dukkha, right? And the non-atman is the non-self doesn't exist at that point, because you're caught up in the self right there, in that egocentric type of thinking that, dude, I gotta fix me right now. What do I gotta do? You know what I'm saying? But I've noticed, and one of the things that I've really noticed throughout the years of the practice of staying in a spiritual practice, and that could be whatever you want it to be, you know what I'm saying? I'm not here to tell you that one's better than the other. It's all good, you know what I'm saying? It's all, if it's getting you into that space of change, right? And I found that the practice of a spiritual path and a path of recovery, in a sense of a program, could be whatever program you want it to be. And for me, I've done many programs, man. And right now, the program that I'm currently involved in the most is Dharma recovery. And for me, that works. You know what I mean? And I still attend AA meetings. I still attend NA meetings. But Dharma recovery for me has been essential, because it's given me a different lens to see things in a different way, to feel things in a different sense, and it's allowing me to look at things in that way, in that third person type of way. You know what I'm saying? Now, because the anxiety just goes away, as we were saying, if you just allow yourself to just be aware that you're starting to get an anxiety. We'll just use that as an example. And just sit with it. And just understand and know that, okay, I know I'm freaking out right now. If I just breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, and hold that breath for a few seconds and breathe out a little longer than the hold, then you're going to find out that in a few minutes, that anxiety just goes away, man. It melts. You can feel it. in your soul. You could feel it in your muscles. Just the calmness, the tranquility of that is just beautiful. And in addiction, instead of saying I am addiction, I am an addict, we remember. Instead of thinking that way, we say I am a person experiencing recovery, one moment at a time. That is change. That is impermanence. Now, what a beautiful way of seeing things through a different lens, one of compassion and mindfulness, and a non-discriminative way of thinking and thinking of this of being compassionate and mindfulness to you first. You know what I'm saying? Because you're the one going through that suffering. You know what I mean? And before you can express a helping hand, express something verbally to somebody that's going to help somebody else, you got to show that love and compassion for you first. You got to be in the stillness first. You got to be aware of that stillness first. You know what I'm saying? Now, that small mental shift creates space to remind us that there will be good days and difficult days. Moments of confidence, moments of doubt, progress and setbacks, but to remember that none of these moments are permanent. You know what I'm saying? Understand that, remember that, know that none of those things that you're going through can be in a permanent, is going to be permanent. Now, it may take you a little while to get out of this, and that's just because we can stay in that circle. And it's a dangerous zone right there, because you can stay in the cyclical world, and if you stay in that little thing, man, is it going to, those whirlwinds of things keep going around, start dragging you down, and further down, the further down you go, the harder it is that it is going to be to get up and take that next breath, right? But that's where the discipline of a spiritual path, of a recovery path, of a program, of being teachable, leveling the walls down, comes into play, right? Now, that in recovery, spirituality, you will have change. In recovery, spirituality, you will have change. It's inevitable. It comes. Sometimes it comes in small spurts, and sometimes it's in a drastic change, right? But knowing change will come. You know what I'm saying? And in that, I believe, in my personal opinion, in my personal experience, drastic change had to happen in order for me to move past this suffering of addiction, the suffering of trauma, the suffer of grief, of depression, of suicidal thoughts, anxiety, all of those types of things. It was the drastic change, and that's just my path, right? Everybody's going to have a different path, and their drastic changes are going to be a little bit different than mine. But know that the drastic change, a lot of times, is going to be that people, places, and things. You know what I'm saying? Because we all want to cling on to that. We all want to cling on to the people, to the relationships, to that thing of being, feeling that thing that somebody cares for us, right? Even if it's sour, right? Even if it's a hurtful thing, but you still have this comfort in a sense, even in that pain. Places we all want to stay in our comfort zone of places, right? I know for myself, when I was in the world of addiction, I was comfortable there at one point. You know what I'm saying? I didn't want to. I didn't know. And I forgot. Okay, what does it feel like to be in this world of responsibility, of love, of compassion, of caring? You know, and for when you get into that place, it's hard to get out of it when you're in that mental lockdown, in a sense, right? Now, people, places, and things, you know, even the things, man, where at one point I was so fixated on the things that I possessed. You know what I'm saying? That when I lost them, I was in this just depressing mode, man. That I lost all this stuff. You know, when I was sitting there in the last day that I was sitting in the house that I used to own, and seeing this house being taken away from me and all the things that were in it, seeing everything that was just being taken out and just thrown out, and seeing the lives, the history that I had made in the home with my kids, and it being just taken away at a drop of a dime, I was so fixated on that clinginess that it led me into this world of depression, of anger, of in turn there into the addiction, because I wouldn't feel that ugliness, pain, that emptiness, that you know what I'm saying? And so the change of the suffering can keep you bound down. You know what I'm saying? And understanding the impermanence of that, the changing, when you involve a spiritual practice, and in my case, Buddhism, because Buddhism allowed me to see things in a different lens, man. Was I able to understand things differently when I started studying impermanence and the emptiness of self? That nothing lasts forever, that that your mind is constantly changing, right? That your body's constantly changing, that your environment is constantly changing. And what is it that you're going to put into this so that you live a better life for you and the people around you? Because if you change, my friends, people change. And that to me is such a beautiful lesson in the lesson of impermanence, because when I understood that and started living a different life with that in mind and putting these spiritual and recovery practices into my life again, my energy started reflecting on the people that I come in contact with. You know what I'm saying? Especially my family, you know, my kids for sure. And it's one of the things that I'm just grateful for, that I'm able to, in a sense, the old cowboy saying, be back in the saddle again, right? Because it's really hard. It's really easy to get knocked off, man. It's really easy to get knocked off that salad. And when you get knocked off the saddle and you sitting there in the bowl of dust, you can't see nothing. And to be able to see past the dust of delusion is such a beautiful feeling, my friends, that it allows you to do things, to navigate your life in your mental capacity in different ways that you normally would not, right? And yeah, so I just another thing that I wanted to kind of just throw out there. I want to read this little bit of text coming out of the Buddhism for Today by Nikkyo Nwano. There's the part he writes in here that says, all things are transient. In Japan, all things are transient is often understood to mean life is fleeting. Probably because the phrase is used with a connotation in works of classical Japanese literature. The famous line in the beginning of the Tale of Heike, the bell of the monastery of Javanya tolls the impermanence of all things, and perhaps the well-known example, popular literary reference to the futility of life become a major reason for the common misunderstanding that Buddhism is a religion teaching us to seek rebirth in a better world because this phenomenal world is fleeting and meaningless. The correct type of basic misconceptions, we must first begin to clear understanding of the meaning of the two terms in the phrase, all things are transient. The word things in this phrase is the translation of the Sanskrit samskara. The word samskara indicates all phenomena that appear in the world through the interaction of causes and conditions. Transient means that nothing permanently retains the same state or form. The simplest way to say it would be everything changes. All things that come into existence through causes and conditions, that is all phenomena, is this world. In this world are in a state of constant change. And that's, to me, is a really beautiful definition of impermanence in a recovery and spiritual standpoint, because the causes and conditions is going to bring about the change. In other words, what you do, think, say, learn in your own personal life is going to depend, is going to bring forth that causation. You know what I'm saying? Just to give you an example, when I was in the world of addiction, even though I was suffering, even though I was mentally suffering, physically suffering, and knew it, my actions was the key thing that kept me in that suffering state. In other words, my actions was the causes of my condition. You know what I'm saying? And I can tell you that this way of thinking, this way of living is, it's like it's like you can't go wrong in a sense. You know what I'm saying? It's like the natural laws of cause and effect come into play, and you can't stop the natural laws of cause and effect. The natural laws of cause and effect take place with or without you. You know what I'm saying? Now, it's going to have a different effect depending on your input of the causation. And until I started learning and experiencing the teachings of the Dharma, of recovery, the recovery path, did my conditions start changing. And I can tell you this, the more you do it, the more things happen. You know what I'm saying? It is so simple in a sense that it is so hard. You know what I'm saying? And I'm a test to that. I'm living proof that it works. Now, I want to just leave you, I guess, here with, I just want to, I guess, the last thing I want to say is maybe I'll just take it out of the book here of the Teo. It says the Teo is like an empty container. It can never be emptied and can never be filled. Infinitely deep. It is the source of all things. It dulls the sharp, unites the knotted, shades the lighted, and unites all of creation with dust. It is hidden, but always present. I don't know who gave birth to it. It is older than the concept of God. That's the Teo. That's the energy of the phenomenon, of the cause and effect of that natural cause and effect of the world, right? Of the universe, of that energy, man. So yeah, I hope that you guys got something out of this message today. I know I was really excited to talk about it because in my personal life, man, it has helped me understand impermanence and to not only understand it, but to put it in practice, those understandings in my own life. You know what I'm saying? In every single thing that I do. Now, I just want to thank you for your donation of your time and leave you with this. Whatever you're carrying today, joy, grief, fear, hope, or uncertainty, whatever it is, whatever that's bounding you down today, just remember that it won't stay exactly as it is, that you are in constant change and that you too will strengthen your ability to embrace the change with the consistency of the Dharma practice, or any spiritual practice for that matter, and a recovery practice, if in whatever recovery that is put in front of you in your life. And whatever spirituality that you choose, staying consistent in the practice of both will give you a new way to live, learn, share, and teach, and a new and better way than the day before. Because you are worthy, you are beautiful, and you are in a constant change. Now at this time, if you just indulge me in a moment of silence, and I'll ring this out, man. Thank you very much for watching. If you please, at this time, go like, go subscribe, share the channel, man. It's the only way that we can grow the channel, to spread the message to the addict who still suffers, to those of us who are still suffering in this world of trauma, of addiction, of depression, of grief, of suicidal thoughts, of anger, of all those types of mental things, man, of anxieties and stuff. And because I've dealt with all those things at one point in time in my life, and just know that my way out could be your way out. So thank you for indulging me. Again, I'm going to ring this out, if you would please indulge me in that. Nam-myo renge-kyo, Nam-myo renge-kyo, Nam-myo renge-kyo. Eternal Buddha Shakyamuni, thank you for guiding me. Thank you for guiding all of us, all sentient beings connected to myself, to all of you hearing. Thank you for guiding ourselves, and go on and guide someone else. Thank you. I guess until the next time, when the smoke clears, I am the Recovery Plug.